ran into some technical difficulties on the back end of, posting the last, that would have been an arm day. So I go down to my basement. That's where I get the whole PC kind of set up. And I'm looking all over the place. My keyboard's got like water spots on it. My monitor's got all sorts of just stuff kind of around. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Because I just put in like a beefy ass dehumidifier to keep it dry. So I'm like, what? And I look and I've got this little just like desk shelf drawer, so the thing comes out just like a little plastic container full of water. Something somewhere, I don't know if it was from the rain or from like a water, just whatever, was leaking. Got all over the place, but it must have landed all in this little container, so like it didn't ruin anything. But I could not, for the life of me, get my mouse to show up. I'm doing everything. I'm opening the main terminal. I'm going deep down like old 5-year like Reddit threads where they say like how to fix it. And this has been like hours at this point. Then I thought there might be a simpler solution to this problem. The mouse got wet. My mouse just wasn't working, and that was the only problem. So luckily enough, I had the computer just inches away from certain doom, right? Mixing water with your motherboard. Let's just say it's not an awesome combination, but mixing water with your workout. And I'm talking making sure you're totally maximized fluid-wise. You got your gallon jug on you at least most of the time. Right, that's my EDC, either just a regular spring water bottle or an emptied out, kind of cleaned milk jug. Honestly, I think that has a little bit of extra detail to it, because that means, oh shit, where'd the milk go? It means you're kind of extra serious. But either way, that's got to be, if not, yeah. Well, I'm a little torn between what's more important for a workout. Being well fed or being well hydrated, right? If you're well fed, you got a bunch of carbs in your system. You simply have a ton of energy that you consume, so you're like, you're ready to get after it. But well hydrated, I think, has to take the cake, because nothing's going to flow around without those fluids. So I'm more concerned with just how much water I've got, at least like on a daily circulation, because I know that that's going to have a direct impact, not only just on how pumped I'm going to be at the end of the lift, but also, how it's going to feel, right? You're not going to get an exertion headache if you're actually well hydrated, right? Half of the cause of most of any freaking headaches is just the fact that your brain is kind of spongy, in the sense that it can soak up water and it can kind of get deflated of water to a degree which almost kind of like stretches it inside your freaking skull. And your skull's not going anywhere. So if you got some kind of electrolyte imbalance, or you're dehydrated, then you over whatever, that's what's going on, right? So as far as I'm concerned, as long as you've got at least, I can say a specific number, usually maybe probably 1.5 liters a day for every 100 pounds that you weigh. So if you're a 200-pound dude, 3 liters. I think that's probably about good. If you're a 250-pounder, or upwards of 260, 70-pounder, then that's going to put you around a little closer to like 4-ish. A good rule of thumb is just kind of a gallon. But honestly, thinking about it in liters makes a little more sense for me. My typical routine ends up being liter pre-cardio, with caffeine, with whatever, some electrolytes, liter after, and then the rest kind of just spills into the day. Some during training. I like to have a good chunk of water with my pre-workout, just so I've actually got, extra fluids at that moment to really, fill myself up with. And then, of course, while I'm training, and then after the workout, plus for, dinner. As long as if I've got a meal, I want a substantial glass or just bottle of water next to me every time. That's typically a good rule of thumb, So if you know anybody who's going to say, oh, dude, man, every time I squat, every time I really just, it just messes with my head, man. It's too much. I'm like, okay, what was your hydration for the day? What was your overall hydration? 2 Monsters for breakfast and 1 Coke Zero for lunch. And then you dry scoop your pre, so you barely drink more than a few ounces with that. That's a recipe for, well, I mean, maybe not absolute instant disaster, but more so just gradual gumming of your gears. You know, I think that's how I'd want to put it. All right, Mark's in the crib hitting some calves. And then for me, today is just going to be forearms. This would have been a rest day, but come on. Look, as much as I do see the value in a good rest day, when was the last time you got a real, genuine forearm pump that made you say, holy crap, I can barely hold on to the steering wheel in my car because there's so much blood and tension in my forearms? Right? Probably not that recently. Forearms are low on the priority list, I feel. I think the hierarchy, arms, chest, and shoulders is up here, S tier, you know, back kind of a little lower. You don't really see it all the time. But still A tier. I think legs get hit in C tier, B tier. It sucks, but I'm just talking about like overall percentage of people that are really getting after it. And forearms, I mean, shit. The forearms get trained less than calves. You know, calves are at least kind of a joke because it's always like, oh, you better hit some calves. Like the idea of not doing it is still, you know, kind of something funny to even say. But forearms don't even have a joke like that to be skipped because it's unironic. You know, they don't get hit. And it's typically backed up by the same arguments. One, well, you train your forearms during your workouts. When you grab everything, when you grab the bar, when you grab the pull down bar, when you grab all the handles, that trains your forearms. You don't need to work them directly. And to a degree, I think that makes sense. That's why the logic kind of clicks with more people, because it's like, yeah, you know, I kind of feel my forearms a little bit. But if you want bigger forearms, if you want a bigger chest, are you just going to do tricep pushdowns where you feel your chest a little bit? No, you're going to really get after it and smack them around. So I've gone through all sorts of different movements. I mean, I could sit in here and do probably, well, for the back of your forearm, for all these little like fingerling looking pieces, there's not a lot. It's really just this kind of action. Whether you load it with a cable or a barbell or a dumbbell, it's going to be the same thing regardless. So that there's not a lot to do there. But in terms of the curling action, is this flexion? This is the flexion aspect of your forearms. You've got a lot at your disposal, right? I'm talking standard dumbbell curls as such, you know, kind of lean it up against a bench, sit here like that. Some guys like doing it where they sit sideways or they like lay down in front of the bench with a barbell. Personally, I think that's a little bit funky. Like this is just a weird angle to do it. Whatever works. Grabbing a cable and just doing straight bar curls like that, kind of like the cat paw sort of meme, or doing the same thing single arm. Or you get extra crazy and you start like setting yourself up a whole arm wrestling rig where you've got like a like a jiu-jitsu belt wrapped around a thick-ass PVC pipe, and you got these. There's a lot to do. But for me, at least, it's kind of boiled down, I mean, really to 3 movements, but if I had to pick 2, then these would be them. So this, I'm not going to show every set. It's very repetitive. I'm just going to sit here for about 6 or so of each, and then we can cut to the pump that results. So if this is a forearm tutorial, if you're going to tell somebody, how am I going to pump my forearms up? I don't think this is a bad method. For me, at least, right? And of course, that's kind of a preferential thing. You can decide on your own, you know? But it's going to start with a bench as such, and I'm putting my feet up on the wheels of the bench so they can be a little higher. If your leg is slanted down like this, it's just, I don't feel it as much. I want my leg actually a little bit upwardly angled so I have a good resting position to sit on. And grab a dumbbell of your choosing, not too heavy, not too light. If you go too heavy, you're just going to hurt your wrist, and then you're not even going to feel it. So for me, that sweet spot ends up being 20 pounds. Single arm, as you'll see in a moment, but just here and really kind of squeeze. These reps are not going to be so damaging on a rep by rep basis, right? If I'm doing a crazy ass squat, I'm going to do 1 rep, and my first reaction is holy shit, and then do another one, and I'm like, this is crazy. But with things like this, it's just a little more gradual of a burn, you know. So I'm talking, get to the point where really even finishing a rep is just getting kind of tricky. There's not much more motion left. That's your cue. Put it down. Wait a minute. Honestly, even 30 seconds. This isn't really. It's kind of a quick recovery just because you're not hitting it that hard. 5 or 6 of these, and the back of your forearms should be pumped up enough that you should start to see some kind of fancy stuff going on. And when you're lean, this will pay off. If you're kind of off season, 20% body fat, 18% body fat, not as noticeable, especially if you might have more fat deposits in your arms, just because it's kind of going to get covered up like any sort of cut or striation. But if you're really kind of peeled, then every time you pick any kind of dumbbell up, you'll see all these kind of fancy things go on to the back. And that's what I'm working for, right? It's not something I'm really going to get revealed now, but it's for me in the future, for once I lean down and actually see what's been built underneath. You know, it's like those America's Got Talent videos where the guy paints a whole painting in water upside down. You don't know what the hell's going on. But then once he splashes it with flour, flips it over, that would be the dieting phase. Then you really see what's it got built. And you're like, holy crap. How the hell did he do that? Even though he just showed you the whole time. You know, but just one of these, you know, to be shown, repeat 5-6 times or so until you're really burning. And then we'll move on to kind of movement number 2. Oh, yeah, that's good. Not the most eye-catching set, but I promise this works. I'm going to stay here for a few more minutes, actually probably like 10 minutes or so, and then I'll see you in a second. So this is my bread and butter of the bottom side. And one nag that I see on forearm training is I'll hear guys, and this is mainly like strength guys like wrestling or like just straight arm wrestling, they're going to say that a bodybuilder's approach to forearm training doesn't build strength, it just builds size. And to that I would say, yeah, that's kind of the point. You know, getting bigger forearms will make you stronger. I've got a dynamometer, so that's like the measure of just your grip force. My heaviest or my strongest grip on my left hand was 212 on a strong day. That was a while ago, but I can't really, because it's like basically 2 knurled handles just like this, maybe an inch apart so you can kind of squish them together. But my right hand's grip strength is always fucking lagging now. I don't know if it's because of just the way my hand is or because I sliced this part open on my thumb, but I can't really like get into it as much. Like I feel strong. Like, I mean, I could swing around this thing one-handed, but yeah, this one's just got a little more beef. But I'm not, the strength is whatever, right? I mean, half the point of having big forearms is just those things are big. That's cool. It's not exactly like, you know, I'm not gonna look at somebody and say, okay, man, what's your grip strength to forearm circumference ratio? That's not what we're here for, you know. But I've already done a couple of these. If this is I mean, I'm like close to fully pumped, so if this is good, then this will be the end of it. But I'm talking similar style as the last one, a little quicker, but just, I mean, this is the motion right here. That's it. It's not a lot, right? But it's enough to really squeeze. And I do like looking at my forearm in the mirror when I do these, because I can actually kind of like visualize pulling all the way down here, because all this is fingers and hand, right? This whole portion of meat is all doing this action, and it ties in all the way down, really to almost even further, like up my elbow, like right up here. So when I'm looking at myself in the mirror, you know, this way or the other, I want to be able to kind of imagine pulling all the way from down here. Like I'm not putting my mind into my hand, I'm trying to pull my hand down with these tendons, if you can kind of imagine. You know, it's like you got a, it's like at your grandma's house, how she's got, you know, all over the place, you're gonna have those little like grip assistants where it's the 2 prongs, you got the handle, right? You're not exerting force at the tip of it, you're pulling it from the base, you see? So that's kind of what I'm trying to imagine here, and that helps me get a little more into my forearm, at least enough that I notice. So I think this might be it, and then we can see how they're looking. Okay. All right, that's good. And then things become clear, very literally. But yeah, no need to even roll the sleeves up, but I may as well, just for the effect of showing just how much larger my forearms are compared to my upper arms, at least compared to my relative. Yeah, you're used to seeing me in my normal state, and this is what they, if you know what that is, some of you, but either way, yeah, I mean that's a substantial amount of extra beef. Like this is it's kind of, I mean, imagine like I want to be chain-esque. I'm talking like if you've ever been to a serious on the coast side of thing and you see like these massive, like, tons upon tons of steel chains where they're linked together in this sort of fashion, right? If you can kind of see what I'm talking about there. Because your arms are kind of ovalish where they're thicker this way than they are this way, right? And your forearms are the opposite, right? They're thinner from the top, but wider from the side, So I want to be able to sit here totally unpumped and hit like, kind of a flex like this and have it be a pretty drastic change from bicep to forearm. Like it's almost as though as wide as my arms are, tricep to bicep, like this way, I want my forearms to be the same way, top to bottom, because that will just add, kind of just an extra layer of, well, I mean, really just freaking straight up size, But let me see if I can get a little extra veiny. I wouldn't recommend this if you're prone to lightheadedness. I've definitely been close when I'll be sitting in the mirror post chest day, whatever. Big breath. Obviously, you want every vein you've got in your freaking body to pop out, and in the process, I've seen it happen. It's look up flexing passing out. Not an awesome video to see, right? But let's get a quick kind of vein shot and then get out of here. Oh man, yeah, very nice. So, obviously nothing like a crazy chest day, but forearms deserve some love too. Right? Forearms deserve their fair share. So, let's get in the car and recreate that meme where it's the guy driving his BMW, like this, if you know what I'm talking about. Just saw a quick little flash of lightning, and it was very well timed, as I would describe that forearm pump as electric. It's nothing like a chest day, it's nothing like an arm day, but that's, and that's where every time I do a forearm lift, this isn't like a weekly thing. Forearms are not in the weekly split. It's typically just thrown in, especially if I feel like I need a rest day. They're just a more chill day before getting into a really heavy lift the day afterward. But I'll always get, it's like, dude, this guy drove all the way to the gym just to hit forearms? And to that, I would say, look, man, you got your eyes on the big picture, right? Don't forget the details. If anything, the detailed work of everything else, kind of what adds up to, really make anything cool. I'm not even, like I was about to say make something great, but I'm not even saying great. I'm just saying cool, Like, would any freaking, real old school kind of just monument of any sort be interesting if it was just super plain and simple? Like if it just finished the one key task it was meant to do and nothing else, Or I guess That's not the best analogy. But all I'm trying to say is, even though it's a smaller thing relatively, and it may not feel like it plays a massive role in the grand scheme of your body and your build and everything else, I think it's and this is a little bit projecting in a sense, but it's like when you watch any of the old, or not old, but like any kind of sushi chef documentaries or any kind of cooking, whatever. It's it kind of starts ground up, cleaning, prepping, not even really getting to the full thing, but giving the smaller details their full attention, and I think that idea kind of scales pretty broadly, right? I mean, you're not thinking, okay, I want to get big, eat a bunch of beef, right? I mean, I'm not saying that wouldn't help, but you got to kind of look at the overall kind of nitpicky things. You don't really. I'm sure that every top Olympia character that has ever been, and every great, probably didn't look like they were a total beast when they were just sitting weighing out 150 grams of ground beef and rice, or just doing 30 minutes of cardio. Now, obviously, if these guys are nuts, they're going to look crazy doing anything. But all I'm saying is, like, that's just kind of, little crazy inspiring, just day by day kind of task of things that goes along with that greater goal of gains. But if you give those smaller details, the same effort and respect that you give to like a serious lift or a crazy set of bench or a crazy, whatever, you're just setting yourself up for success. I'm not one to ever say that I have a favorite body part to hit. I think if I, and then of course I'm going to contradict myself by saying I like chest because your chest is big, your arms are big, your shoulders are a little bigger. But I'm not going to say that objectively I like chest more than arms or I like chest more than legs, because each of them comes with its own benefits and drawbacks. And by drawbacks, I don't really mean drawback, I just mean difficulties. The coolness effect of doing an arm day, especially if you're like on the leaner side of things too. Let's say you got your tank on, you're curling with your arms out. I mean, just doing those reps, you're going to look extra veiny because, the pressure of actually contracting is going to get your veins going. Or like doing a crazy set of flies, or like you're lifting a bunch of weight on incline bench or something. Like, that's cool, you feel cool while you're doing it. Whereas sometimes with harder lifts, right, legs, leg press, squats, those are just hard, right? The coolness factor is outweighed by the difficulty factor, right? As cool as I feel doing a crazy ass set of squats, before I actually do it, I'm not thinking to myself like, oh yeah, I can lift this much weight. Oh yeah, this is sweet. I'm thinking, holy shit, this is heavy. All right. Get myself into the zone to do it. So something like legs, it's kind of a delayed gratification of once you kill it and kind of overcome that obstacle of just how hard it was, if you actually push yourself that hard, then you get the reward of, obviously checking out your pump, seeing what kind of sets you were able to manage, sitting in the car after the lift and just getting to think, all right, yeah, I brought it tonight. Sweet. I'm not usually one to say like, oh, I earned a meal or something like that, but it's kind of a nice feeling, It says you gave yourself a challenge, you went toe-to-toe with it, you brought it, now you get to go home, recover, and get ready to do it again, So I know that's not so much of what you might feel like getting a forearm pump, right? But if you still go about that like it's a, like it's a championship match, at least, relativistically, then, hey, man, shit. I know for one thing you're going to get bigger forearms. And in a gains world, or in a gains perspective, that's all we're aiming for, right? I want to be a different guy after every lift. Now, I'm not saying game-changingly different, but, I know over the next couple of days, from, just hitting that lift along with the food that I'm eating, my forearms are going to be bigger. They're not going to be much bigger. On like a lift-by-lift basis, they're not going to be much bigger in like just a standard off-season. But, and I'm just saying like a few kind of day sort of frame, but I know that they will be slightly bigger. Even if I can't see it directly, I know that that's the path that I'm putting them on by hitting them, getting them pumped, and just really wrecking them. So, what's my Where's the draw to stop doing it? You know, because if you know something works, right? It's like it's as if you went to a pinball machine, and you know everybody thinks, oh, it's just totally random. You know, it's, my genetics or my metabolism. But if you suddenly find a specific way to smack the paddles that works for you, and it just keeps giving you more and more points, which I would kind of compare getting a good grip on your own ability to train and diet is like, you know, you're kind of clearing the mist of the mystery of making your own kind of gains. Then I mean, shit, you know, all you've got to do is keep doing what you've been doing and don't slow down, right? That's there's a few phases of working out which I feel some are just objectively better than others, you know, and this is more of like a middle tier phase. You really do know what you're doing. You're making reasonable, continuous progress. That's where you've built up momentum from learning, newbie gains, getting into a routine and a habit of working out, where coming to the gym isn't a chore. It's just what you do and what you're excited to do later in your day or early, you know, if you're kind of an early bird kind of lifter, right? Either way, then you get to a point where that momentum will keep carrying you forward. You know, it's like, what's easier, you know, swimming across the pool from a dead stop tread, or jumping in from the side, getting a running start and diving in, right? So once you've built up that momentum and what you're doing is working, shit, man, don't fix it if it ain't broke. That's not to say, you know, don't try to improve, but just keep doing what you're doing. And it's not hard to build up that momentum. Like if you're in more of a kind of fat loss sort of situation where, oh shit, man, I'm down 30 pounds over the last 6 months, but it's starting to kind of slow down. What were you doing those last 6 months? Were you tracking everything? Were you hitting your cardio? Were you maybe, you know, kind of continuously dropping calories to account for the fact that your body's going to kind of get used to new deficits? You know the answer, right? If that scale starts slowing down weight-wise, increase calorie, or no, decrease calorie, increase cardio to a degree. You know, I think anything beyond an hour a day, and I'm talking like steady on the bike, you know, 3 mile an hour walk on like an incline, like that kind of intensity, just getting your heart rate up to like a 130, 140 or something. I think more than an hour a day might be overkill, and that's actually from my own kind of experience. And beyond that, shit, man, if you're tracking all your freaking, you know, rice and everything else on the scale, and you're reading the nutrition labels on everything, you know if you're eating too much. So it's not a question of knowledge, it's more so a question of just execution, right? But that's once you've built up that momentum, you don't need me to tell you that, right? You know what you're doing. But yeah, good forearm lift. I can tell that my grip strength has diminished just from having hit them so hard already. But once they're fully recovered, right? Once I kind of get more glycogen replenished and give them some time to kind of rest and just let them do their thing, right? Guess what's going to happen? Now, I'm not constantly testing my grip strength every week or anything, but I'm sure that minor increase in strength plus just exposure to the weight that was required for that pump will play in to having bigger, stronger forearms in the future, right? And that's what I'm here for. So, I think nothing else to say. I've got a leg day tomorrow, which I think most of my lifts, I almost hit this guy because he did a freaky U-turn, but most of my lifts, I like a full day of food first, and then coming into the gym with a full stomach, ready to really hit it. But with legs, I'm starting to think I might like a little bit of an earlier lift without such a full stomach, just because it's a bit more arduous, a little more lengthy. It's I've tried to like decide if I should do quads in one session, hamstrings in another, or like a 2 a day, or like split it up. And I think the answer is there is no answer. Legs is hard. It's supposed to be hard. That's one of the hard days of the workout. So I can live with that. That's freaking for sure. But I can guarantee I will be drenched in sweat, whether I go to an air-conditioned gym or back to the private space. And my legs will be, I'm not sure how many inches bigger. At least 1 inch bigger pumped around. I can guarantee an inch increase, honestly, maybe even 2 inches. But beyond that, might be a little crazy, right? I mean, if you see something grow even 2 inches in the span of like 30 minutes or an hour, I mean, that's pretty wild, right? I mean, when I get an arm pump, that's only going to grow an inch, and that still feels like a freaking ton, you know? So don't neglect those numbers. But I think that's all I got. So I'll see you for tomorrow.